right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I would love to give all praises and honor and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Yahweh being the name of God, and Yahweh Shai being the name of Jesus Christ. Right, I want to touch on Romans the 11th chapter, and I'll get an understanding on Romans the 11th chapter on the grafting in. You know, because the world talk about grafting in, and they talking about it's about the other nations. It's about, you know, the Gentiles. It's about everybody. They try to include everybody with the scripture, but it's not according to the word of the Most High. Right? We're going to read the Bible. We're going to get the understanding. And Lord willing is edifying and exhorting unto the nation of Israel. And Lord willing, brothers and sisters could learn something new today. You know, Lord willing, right? So I'm going to touch in Romans 11 and start at the top. It says, I say then, have God cast away his people? Yahweh forbid. For I also am an Israelite of the seed of Abraham of the tribe of Benjamin. So Paul kicked it off right away. He said, have God cast away his people? God forbid, meaning no. He said, look, I'm an Israelite, man. So he's telling you off rip that the Most High is still dealing with the children of Israel, man. That he haven't cast them away. That the Lord haven't cast the Israelites away. He's still dealing with them, just as he was dealing with them, you know, in the wilderness, when they was evil. You know, when they was rebelling, the Most High was, he did not cast away his people, man. Even though it looked like he cast them away, even though it looked like they was waxing worse, the Most High said, look, I still haven't cast away my people, man. You know, because guess what? They the apple of his eye. Continuing on. So Paul is letting you know off right away, look, the Lord is still dealing with the Israelites. Verse number 2. God have not cast away his people. So the Lord did not cast away his people. Plain. Which he foreknew, because he foreknew us. What ye not what the scripture saith of Elijah, how he maketh intercession to God against Israel, saying, Lord, they have killed thy prophets and digged down thy altars, and I am left alone, and they seek my life. Because Elijah was in a cave, and Elijah thought pretty much, he thought that he was the last Israelite on the damn earth, man. Elijah thought that, look, the Lord cast away his people. He thought it was over. But the Lord's about to let you know that the Most High, that's not so. And that might happen to a lot of brothers in the truth, man. You might come into this thing and you might not, you know, have anybody around you, and you might feel alone. But this is what you have to understand. You have to understand the scriptures and understand that you're never alone, right? You're never alone in this thing. Continue on. And it reads, it says, what saith the scriptures of God unto him? I have reserved to myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee to the image of Baal. So 7,000 men, which is a complete amount of number of men, that's never going to bow the image to Baal. Meaning that these men, they're going to serve the Most High unto death, man. These men, they always going to serve the Lord, man. No matter what, you know. So the Most High always have a remnant of men, and you could say women too, that's never, you know, gonna bow down, man. Because they're reserved unto the Most High. Continuing on, verse number 5. It says, even so then at this present time also, there is a remnant according to the election of grace. And the Lord always dealing with a remnant. Even in the time of Noah, the Lord only saved 8 souls. Because there was a remnant. Even this time, the Lord said he had made the world for many, but the world to come for a few. So the Lord, even on this time, this go around, when that fire comes, when the Lord send that fire, it's only going to be for a few. Not, you know, only a few who are going to make it out of here. Okay, continuing on. Verse number 6. And if by grace, then there is no more works. Otherwise, grace is no more grace. But if it be of works, then there is no more grace. Otherwise, work is no more of work. And you see that? So what is the Lord saying? It's either by grace. Is this remnant, you know, by grace? Or this remnant becoming a remnant by their works? Did the remnant kind of do a certain amount of work? Oh, they did this, they did that, and they was the remnant? Nah, man. It was of the mercies of the Most High. Therefore, they the remnant, you know? You know, you can't have it both ways. It can't be of works, because if it was of works, then this is all grace. So it's by grace, man. It's not by your works and the works that you put. It's not about works. It's about the Most High's mercies. Let me go to the book of Lamentations right quick. Let's go to the book of Lamentations. Lamentations, the 3rd chapter, and verse number 22. It says, "It is of the Most High's mercies that we are not consumed, because his compassions fail not." You see that? It says they are new every morning, the next verse. Right? So, that's mighty right there. But nevertheless, the Most High said, he says of his mercies that we are not consumed. Okay? So it's of the Most High's mercies. Right? Let's go back to the book of Romans. It's of the Lord's mercy that Israel wasn't cast away. It's of the Most High's mercies, man. So continuing on, verse number 7. It says, "What then? Israel have not obtained that which he seeketh for, but the election have obtained it, and the rest were blinded." So this thing was for the elect, and the rest is going to be blinded, straight up and down. Continuing on. "According as it is written, the Most High have given them the spirit of slumber, eyes that they should not see, and ear that they should not hear unto this day." So what is the Most High talking about? Predominantly, the Lord is talking about the Jews that was in Judea, and they pretty much dropped the ball because they didn't believe in Yahushua. The Jews in Judea, they couldn't see Yahushua, or what's the world called Jesus Christ. They didn't have belief in him, even though he was doing miracles in front of them, even though he was healing the sick, he was healing the blind, he was raising one from the dead. The Pharisees and the Sadducees, they couldn't see him. They thought that he had Satan on him. Ain't that what they were saying? So they couldn't see Yahweh. The point is that they couldn't see Yahushua. Why? Because the Most High gave them the spirit of slumber. He said the eyes that they should not see. The Most High blinded them for a greater cause. Why did the Most High blind them? And we're going to continue reading, and we're going to see why the Lord blinded the Jews that was in Judea. Continuing on. It said, "And David said, let their table be a snare, and a trap, and a stumbling block, and a recompense unto them." Because your table is where you eat at. That's where you being nourished, and where you're taken care of at, man. So the Most High said, let their table be a snare unto them, because their table where they was eating from was strictly the law, and it became a snare unto them. It became such a trap where they couldn't even see the greater cause of the law, man. They couldn't even see that the law couldn't make them righteous. So the Most High said, let their table be a snare unto them. Right? It says, and I want to get the parable. We're gonna go to the Luke 15, and we're gonna compare this together with the words of Yahushua. We're gonna compare Romans, the 11th chapter, with Luke, the 15th chapter, and it go hand in hand, right? First, we're gonna continue in Romans. Actually, we're gonna continue in Romans. Let's continue on. It says, verse number 12. "Now if the fall of them be the riches of the world, and the diminishing of them the riches of the Gentiles, how much more their fullness?" So what is God saying? The fall of the Jews in Judea, and the Gentiles. Who are the Gentiles? The Israelites that was scattered abroad, living like the Greeks. Because prior to the Romans coming into power, you had the Greeks, which that's history that was taken out of the Bible, which people, they read the New Testament, and they'll see about Gentiles, they'll see about there's no Jew nor Greek, and they'll be confused because they don't know the missing history that happened with the Israelites, man. We was in the Greek captivity, man. We was calling ourselves, we was damn going off, man. So let's go to the book of Luke right quick. Let's just prove that we were scattered abroad, and we was, damn taken down. Luke 21 and verse number 24. And it says, "And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles, until the time of the Gentile be fulfilled." So you had Jews that were scattered abroad, and we was living like the different nations, man. Let's go to the 1 Corinthians right quick. Let's get another precept on that. It's proving that we was the Gentiles. Let's go to 1 Corinthians, the 12th chapter. Let's read verse number 2. It says, you know that you were Gentiles, carried away into these dumb idols, even as you were led. So the Most High said, you know you were Gentiles. Now let's make this make sense, man. How can you used to be a Gentile? How can you used to be, one day you a Chinese man, and then the next day you a so-called African American? How can you used to be a Gentile? How you go from being an Israelite and now you a Gentile? That doesn't make any sense. What is the Most High saying? He said, you know you were Gentiles. Why is he telling that you used to be a Gentile? Because you was living like a Gentile, serving other gods. He said, you know you were Gentiles, carried away into these dumb idols, man. Because when you're living like a Gentile, the Most High classify you as a Gentile, man. That's how the Most High set it up, man. You can't used to be a Gentile. That makes no sense. So, I mean, if this don't make any sense, then I don't know. All right? Let's go back to the book of Romans. Let's go back to Romans 11 and verse number 13. It says, for I speak to you Gentiles, and so much as I am the apostle of the Gentiles, I magnify my office. And if by means I may provoke to immolation them which are my flesh, and might save some of them. For if the casting away of them be the reconciling of the world, what shall the receiving of them be but life from the dead? Right, we're going to start right there. We're going to go to Luke, the 15th chapter, and we're going to compare this up. Because essentially what you have going on is you had the Israelites. There was, you had the Israelites. Then you had a remnant of Israelites that got scattered, through various captivities. Well, mainly the Greek captivity. We learned the works of the heathen. We learned their customs. Then you had a remnant of Jews that stayed in Judea, that stayed loyal to the Most High, that kept the commandments. They was in Jerusalem. Then you had other Israelites that was scattered, and they learned the customs of the heathen. Taken away, led captives, man. So that's what happened, man. So you got these two type of different Israelites, man. But the point of Romans 11 is to tell the Jews that was in Judea that couldn't see Yahushua, and the Gentiles that actually came back to Yahushua, to show them that, look, we're all brothers in this thing. The Most High was trying to reconcile the world, which is Israel, and reconciles under Yahushua, man. So it's really beautiful when you really you understand it. Right? But let's compare Romans 11 with the book of Luke, the 15th chapter. All right, it's Luke 15 and verse number 11. It says, and he said, a certain man had two sons. And this certain man that had two sons, you could essentially say Yahushua, man, right? It says, he said a certain man had two sons. The two sons is the Jews that was in Judea. One son was the Jews that was in Judea. Another son was the Israelites that wanted to serve other gods and be wicked, essentially the Gentiles, okay? Israelite Gentiles, Israelite foreigners, okay? It says, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falls to me. And he divided unto them his living. And not many days after, the younger son gathered all together and took his journey into a far country, and there wasted his substance with riotous living. Right? So you got this younger son. He goes out, he leaves his father, and he go live wickedly amongst the heathen. Riotous living is just living wickedly, man. So you had this son that left his father. Ain't that what the Israelites did? They left their father. They were serving other gods. Continuing on. it says, and when he had spent all, there arose a mighty famine in that land, and he began to want. And he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him into the fields to feed swine. So it says, and he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country. When you go and join yourself to a citizen of that country, you become a citizen of that country. Does that change this guy's nationality? Does that make this guy a different race? No. Is that he's a citizen of that country, where it's in this term, the Most High will refer to them as Gentiles. Right? Continuing on. So this man, he went to join himself to the other nations, and now he's eating swine's flesh. He's going off. He's living wickedly. All right? Continuing on. It says, and he would fain have filled his belly with husk that the swine did eat, and no man gave unto him. And when he came to himself, he said, how many hired servants of my father's have bread enough to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and will say unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before thee. Right? So the younger son, he's coming back to the father. Just as in Romans, the 11th chapter, where you had the grafting in. Israelites that was broken off, the branches that was broken off is the Israelites that was living wickedly, serving other gods, living like the Gentiles, and now they're coming back. This is where you got the grafting in at. They're coming back to their father, saying, Father, I have sinned. Father, I did wrong. Like this father, this kid, this son right here, he said, Father, I say unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven before thee. Just as in Romans 11, you have the branches that came back and said, Father, look, we sinned, we messed up. We understand where we went off at. We was living like Greeks. Right? Continuing on. It says, am no worthy to be called thy son, made me as one of thy hired servants. And he arose and came to his father. But when he was yet a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. So his father accepted him back. Just as in Romans 11th chapter, the Most High accepted the Gentiles back to the fold. Continuing on in Romans 11. Verse number 16. For if the first fruits be holy, the lump also is holy. And if the root be holy, so are the branches. And if some of the branches be broken off, and thou, being a wild olive tree, were grafted in among them, and with them partakers of the root and the fatness of the olive tree. And who is referred to as the olive tree? Let's go to the book of Jeremiah 16. Hold on. Okay, Jeremiah 11:16, it says, the Lord called thy name a green olive tree, fair and of goodly fruit. With the noise of a great tumult, he hath kindled fire upon it, and the branches of it are broken. So he referred to Israel as an olive tree, and he said the branches of it are broken. Meaning some of the Israelites, they're not all together, man. You know, and that's what this being reconciled is all about. It's bringing us all back together, you know, under one banner, which is Yahweh Shai. Right? We know this talking about Israel. It's not talking about anybody else, because you read verse number 1. Jeremiah 11:1, the word of the Lord came to Jerusalem from the Most High, saying, hear ye words of this covenant, and speak unto the men of Judah and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. So it's talking to Israel. Right? Let's go back to the book of Romans 11 and verse number 18. Let's see what the Most High told these Gentiles that was coming in. Let's see what he told them. Because before I read it, because you had the Jews in Judea that they was boasting, you know, over the Gentiles. They was looking down on the Gentiles, man. They didn't want to accept them, man. The Lord, you had even the Samaritan woman, she came to Yahweh Shai, she said, you know, the Samaritans had no dealing with the Jews. Why would the Samaritan woman had to say that? she had to say that because the Jews, they weren't dealing with the Samaritans. Was that Samaritan woman, she was an Israelite, right? You read later down that chapter, it says, she says, our father Abraham. So she was an Israelite, but she was classified as a Samaritan. Why she was classified as a Samaritan? Because they was living like heathens. And the Jews was not accepting them. They was not dealing with the Gentiles. They was boasting against them. They was looking down on their brothers, you know. They was like, who the hell are you? You living all wickedly, man. You know, where your fringes at? Where your garments at? You know? Why you not keeping the feast day? They was boasting against the damn the Gentiles. So Paul, he's writing to the Gentiles because he said, I'm the apostle of the Gentiles. He writing to the Gentiles, and this is what he tells the Gentiles that's coming into the fold. This is what he tells them. Verse number 18. He tells them to not do this. Boast not against the branches, but if thou boast, thou bearest not the root, but the root is thee, man. So he told them not to boast. Just because they boasting against you, don't go tit for tat and boast against them now. Now you getting the understanding, and now you can see how it's shy. Don't go ahead and boast against them. You know, even though they did it to you, don't go tit for tat, you know. Verse number 19, it says, thou wilt say then, the branches were broken off, that I might be grafted in. Well, because of unbelief they were broken off, and thou standest by faith. Be not high-minded, but fair, man. You see that? So he said they was broken off because of their unbelief, because the Jews in Judea, they didn't believe in Yahushua. But he said, you standing here by faith, man, because you believe through the Spirit, man. He says, so he told them, don't be high-minded, man. Don't get puffed up, right? Because this way he's going to tell them. 21, for the Most High spared not the natural branches, take heed, lest he also spare not thee. So, hey, you better be careful, man. Don't go ahead and sit there and boast against your brothers now. Don't do that, because they was boasting against. Don't do that, right? Verse number 22, behold, therefore, the goodness and severity of the Most High, on them which fell severity, but towards thee goodness, if thou continue in his goodness, otherwise thou shalt also be cut off. So if you don't do right, you're going to be cut off. And they also, if they abide not still in unbelief, shall be grafted in, for the Most High is able to graft them in again. For if thou wert cut off out of the olive tree, which is wild by nature, and were grafted contrary to nature into a good olive tree, how much more shall these, which be the natural branches, be grafted into their own olive tree? Right? For I would not, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you should be wise in your own conceits, that blindness in part is happened to Israel, unto the fullness of the Gentiles be come. And so all Israel shall be saved in the Most High, as it is written, there shall come out of Zion deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob. Right, let's go back to Luke. So what does the Most High say? He said at the end of the day, all Israel, they're gonna be saved, man. You know. All right, Khan, we back. Going back to the book of Luke, the 15th chapter, where we left off at. Luke 15. Let's start at 19 again. Hold on, do this out. Let's start at 19. It says, and am no worthy to be called thy son. Make me of one of thy hired servants, because you got to think about it. These Gentiles, when they was living like these other nations and serving other gods, they felt bad, man. They felt like we really messed up. They felt afflicted. They felt afflicted, man. They was afflicted. They was going through it like, damn, we really messed up, man. We sinned against the Most High. You know, so he said, I'm not even worthy to be called thy son. Continuing on, and he arose and came to his father. But when he was a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion, and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. And the son said unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and thy sight, and no more worthy to be called thy son. But the father said to his servants, Bring forth the best robes and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet. And bring hither the fattest calf and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For this my son was dead, and is alive again, and he was lost and found, and they began to be merry. And I want to get that precept in the book of Proverbs, the 21st chapter. But let me see. I don't think. Yeah. I'm going to see if I got another Bible on me right quick, because I don't have that verse. Damn, page fell out. Hold on. Oh, I might have this little Bible in here. Hold up. All right, we gotta kind of pull out the little Bible. Hold on. Bear with me. Right, we gotta pull out the little Bible. Hold on. Oh, I don't think it's got the Old Testament in it. Oh, this one got the Old Testament. Hold on. Dang. Well, they don't got the Old Testament in it. But when you read Proverbs, the 21st chapter, do I have it right here? No. Nah. Oh, wait, 21. Yeah, it jumps. Yeah, I don't got it. When you read Proverbs, the 21 chapter, the Most High said, "He that wandereth out of the congregation of the living shall remain in the congregation of the dead," roughly paraphrasing. Right? So that's what makes you dead. When you wander out of the way of understanding, right? When you wander out of the way of understanding, which the Israelites, they did, because they learned other gods, obviously, the Lord said they shall remain in the congregation of the dead, meaning they dead, man. They spiritually, they're dead. Though they walking around physically, they're moving, they're touching stuff, but on the spiritual level, they're actually dead. So what does Luke, the 15th chapter say? My son was what? And he said, it says, "For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found," and they began to be merry. Because the Gentiles, they was lost. Living like Greeks. They had damn tattoos on their face. They was damn butt naked in the Colosseums, you know. Being like the damn Greeks, right? Trying to be like the Greeks best of all. When you read that in the book of Maccabees. When you read the history on it. Right? So they was lost, and now they being found, and then they're being grafted in, because they're being accepted by the Father. Their Father accepted them, and then on top of it, his Father accepted him, and he gave him the best gifts, man. So this is where you get that, right, we're going to continue reading. It says, and his elder son was in the field. So now this other son, right, the Jew that was in Judea at the time, and he came and drew nigh to the house, and he heard music and dancing. And he called one of his servants and asked what these things meant. And he said unto him, Thy brother is come, and thy father hath killed the fat of calf, because he hath received him safe and sound. And he was angry, and would not go in. Therefore came his father out, and entreated him. And he answering said to his father, Lo these many years do I serve thee, neither transgress I any time thy commandment. And yet thou never gave me a kid, that I may be merry with my friends. And you see that? And that's the Jews. The Most High was provoking them, man, to jealousy. You know, he's provoking them to jealousy. So they was jealous, man. So them Jews, they was angry, man. They seen, especially what Yahweh Shai, you know, doing his thing, hailing the Gentiles, being amongst the Gentiles, being amongst the sinners and the Republicans. They was mad, man. They was mad. They was mad at that. They was mad. So this parable is really talking about Israel. But people don't understand this, man. Right? Continuing on, it says, verse number 30, But as soon as thy son was come, which have devoured thy living with harlots, thou hast killed for him the fat of calf. Exactly what the Gentiles is doing, right? And he said unto him, Son, thou art ever with me, and all that I have is thine. It was meet that we should make merry and be glad, for this thy brother was dead and is alive again, and was lost and is found, man. And that's really what Romans 11 chapter is going into. The Israelites that was in Judea at the time, boasting against the Gentiles realizing and acknowledging Yahweh Shai, coming back to the fold. And, you know, and that's what it's really about, man. Yeah, and that's to show the Jews that, look, it's not about just the law. It's about Yahweh Shai. And that's what they couldn't see. They thought it was all about the works, and they didn't know it was about the faith. You got to have faith and works, because you read all through the book of James and the book of Hebrews, you understand that you got to have faith and works, man. And that's something that the Jews couldn't see. They thought it was all about works. They ain't have no faith. Even in the wilderness in the time of the Exodus, we didn't have no faith. Lord said, children whom have no faith. Really paraphrasing. Right? Let me see how much longer this is. But I'm going to end it right there through the Spirit. But that's pretty much what the grafting is going into, touching on. But, Lord, when this was edifying, exhorting and comforting unto the nation of Israel. And yeah, shalom. Shalom, Israel. Shalom.